My brother Bobby is a convicted pedophile who served 5 years for molesting a 7-year-old. But when he got out, my entire family demanded I let him near my 3 daughters. So when I refused, they orchestrated a massive harassment campaign, including having him show up at my 8-year-old's birthday party with a doll in a bathing suit until I had to get a restraining order. But then my mom spent her retirement savings on his legal fees to fight me, while the whole family stalked us and filed false CPS reports until we had to pay him $30,000 just to leave us alone. The day my brother Bobby got released from prison, my mother called me 17 times. I knew what she wanted before I picked up. She'd been preparing me for months with comments about forgiveness and second chances. But there was no way in hell I was letting a convicted pedophile near my 3 daughters. Bobby had served 5 years for what he did to his neighbor's daughter. The girl was 7. My oldest daughter had just turned 8. But somehow, I was the family monster for saying no. Mom showed up at my house the morning of his release. She had this whole speech prepared about how he'd changed and found God. She pulled out a folder full of certificates from prison programs. He completed every course they offered, she said, like that erased what he did. Where's your Christian heart? I kept my answer simple. He wasn't welcome in my home. Not for dinner, not for holidays, not for 5 minutes. My girl's safety came first. Mom's face went from pleading to pure rage. Those are his nieces, she spat. You're denying him his family. The guilt campaign started immediately. My sister Beth called me crying about how Bobby had nowhere to go. Dad sent me Bible verses about forgiveness every morning. Even my Aunt Helen, who lived 3 states away, felt the need to remind me that everyone deserves a second chance. But they saved the real manipulation for Sunday dinner. I'd stopped at Mom's to pick up my grandmother's ring she'd been resizing. The whole family was there. Bobby, too. He was sitting at the kitchen table like nothing had happened, like he hadn't destroyed a child's innocence. Uncle Bobby! My daughter Lily shouted before I could stop her. She ran toward him with her sisters close behind. I've never moved so fast in my life. I scooped up all 3 kids and headed for the door. Bobby had the audacity to look hurt. I just wanted to meet them, he said softly. I'm their uncle. That's when I lost it. I told him being blood didn't give him access to my children. I reminded everyone in that room what he was convicted of. Mom actually covered her ears. Dad muttered something about dwelling on the past. Beth accused me of traumatizing the girls. The smear campaign started the next day. Mom told her church I was keeping her grandchildren from her. She conveniently left out why. Beth posted on Facebook about how some people don't understand redemption. Various relatives commented with prayer hands and Bible quotes. My phone blew up with messages from people who didn't even know the full story. Then Bobby started showing up places. The grocery store, the park, always maintaining distance, always claiming coincidence. He'd wave at the girls from across the playground. I started documenting everything. Date, time, location, witnesses. My husband installed security cameras after we saw him drive past our house 3 times in one day. The breaking point came during Jane's birthday party. We'd rented the community center, invited her whole class. Halfway through cake, Bobby walked in carrying a present. Mom followed behind him, smiling like she'd orchestrated something beautiful. Every girl deserves their uncle at their birthday, she announced. Parents started grabbing their kids and leaving. One father recognized Bobby from the registry website. Within minutes, our daughter's party was ruined. Jane cried in the bathroom while her classmates' parents whispered in the parking lot. The present he brought? A doll in a bathing suit. I filed for a restraining order the next morning. That's when the real war started. Mom hired Bobby a lawyer with her retirement savings. They claimed I was alienating him from the family. The lawyer argued that Bobby had served his time and deserved access to his relatives. My own mother testified against me in court. The judge granted a temporary order but warned it might not hold up long term. Bobby had completed his probation. He wasn't technically breaking any laws by existing near us. The final hearing was set for next month. Meanwhile, the family harassment intensified. Dad started showing up at my husband's work, begging him to talk sense into me. Beth tried to pick up the girls from school, claiming I'd asked her to. The school had to ban my entire family from the approved pickup list. Even relatives I hadn't spoken to in years chose sides. Last night, I found Lily looking at old Christmas photos on my phone. Why don't we see Uncle Bobby anymore? She asked. Grandma says you're being mean to him. I wanted to scream. Instead, I hugged her tight and changed the subject, but I knew this was far from over. The final hearing was in 2 weeks, and Mom had made it clear she'd mortgage her house if necessary to fight me. That's when I realized just how far this would go. I knew I had to get ahead of whatever Mom was planning. The mortgage threat wasn't empty. She'd already blown through her retirement savings on Bobby's lawyer. I started making calls to every family law attorney in town, scheduling consultations. If I could conflict them out by meeting with them first, Mom would have to look elsewhere for representation. My husband took time off work to help with the girls while I prepared for court. We enrolled them in after-school programs to minimize any opportunity for surprise family visits. The school principal agreed to personally escort them to the bus after Beth's pickup attempt. 3 days later, I got a call from my cousin Sarah. She'd always stayed neutral in family drama, so I was surprised to hear from her. She asked if we could meet for coffee. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Sarah looked exhausted when she sat down across from me at the cafe. She glanced around nervously before pulling out her phone. I need to show you something, she said, scrolling through her messages. Your mom's been organizing the family. She has a group chat. My stomach dropped as I read through the messages. 23 family members were actively planning ways to force contact between Bobby and my girls. They discussed showing up at school events, accidentally running into us at stores, even having different relatives file for grandparent rights to overwhelm me legally. The worst part was seeing how they talked about me. According to them, I was mentally unstable, vindictive, and poisoning my children against their loving family. Mom had convinced them all that Bobby's conviction was a misunderstanding, that the girl's family had overreacted. Sarah slid her phone back into her purse. I have kids too, she said quietly. I looked up the court records, what Bobby did. It wasn't some misunderstanding. I spent the rest of that day screenshotting everything Sarah sent me. The group chat revealed their entire playbook. They planned to pack the courtroom with supportive family members. Several aunts and uncles had written character letters for Bobby. Mom had even convinced my childhood pediatrician to write about what a devoted brother Bobby had been. That evening, I found Bobby's truck parked across from our house again. This time, Mom was with him. They sat there for an hour, just watching. When my husband went outside to confront them, they drove away. But they came back the next morning, and the next. The security footage became crucial evidence. Our lawyer said the repeated surveillance could strengthen our case, but warned that family court judges often favored reconciliation. The fact that Bobby had completed his sentence worked in his favor. The system considered him rehabilitated. I started sleeping poorly, jumping at every car that drove by. The girls noticed the tension. Jane asked why we couldn't eat at restaurants anymore. Lily wanted to know why Grandma couldn't babysit. I gave vague answers about everyone being busy, but kids are perceptive. They knew something was wrong. A week before the hearing, things escalated. I was loading groceries when I noticed a woman watching me from across the parking lot. She approached as I closed my trunk, introducing herself as Patricia from Child Protective Services. Someone had called in a report about me denying my children access to family. My hands shook as I provided her my lawyer's information. Patricia was professional but thorough. She needed to interview the children, inspect our home, review their medical records. The complaint alleged emotional abuse through family alienation. The home visit went well. The girls' rooms were clean, the fridge was stocked, their artwork covered the walls. They chatted happily with Patricia about school and friends. But I knew this was just another tactic to wear me down. Mom was playing dirty. Our lawyer subpoenaed the CPS complaint. No surprise, it came from Mom's address. She'd formally accused me of emotional abuse for protecting my children from a convicted pedophile. The irony would have been laughable if it wasn't so terrifying. Bobby got bolder as the hearing approached. He started jogging past our house every morning, always careful to stay on public property. He'd wave at the windows, knowing the girls might see. I kept them away from the front rooms, but it meant living like prisoners in our own home. The family pressure intensified too. Dad left voicemails about how I was destroying the family. Beth sent long emails about forgiveness and healing. Relatives I'd blocked created new social media accounts to message me. They all sang the same tune. I was being cruel, unreasonable, unchristian. Then came the letters. Mom had orchestrated a campaign where family members wrote directly to my daughters. The letters came addressed to them at our home. I intercepted them, of course, but the violation felt profound. They were trying to manipulate my children directly now. I read each letter before shredding them. They all followed a template. How much they missed the girls, how sad Uncle Bobby was, how Mommy was keeping them apart. One aunt included photos of Bobby looking dejected. Another sent drawings Bobby had supposedly made for them in prison. Something feels off about how organized this family campaign is. 23 relatives in a group chat, coordinated letters, everyone suddenly caring so much about Bobby's rights. I'm curious why the whole family is this invested in defending someone with his conviction. My husband installed additional locks and an alarm system. We varied our routes to school and activities. I started grocery shopping in the next town over. We essentially went into hiding while living in our own home. The weekend before court, Mom made her biggest move yet. She filed for emergency grandparent visitation rights. Her petition painted me as an unstable mother who'd cut off family access without cause. She demanded immediate supervised visits with the girls, with Bobby allowed to attend as their uncle. Our lawyer called it a kitchen sink approach. Throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. The emergency petition would be heard alongside our restraining order request. Mom was betting that a judge would compromise, maybe deny the restraining order but grant her some visitation. I spent that weekend organizing evidence, security footage, documentation of every encounter, the group chat screenshots, character references from teachers and doctors who actually knew our family. My husband helped me create a timeline showing Bobby's escalating behavior. The morning of the hearing arrived gray and drizzling. I dressed carefully, conservative but not severe. My husband wore his only suit. We dropped the girls at school early, my stomach churning at leaving them even with the new security measures. The courthouse parking lot was full of familiar cars. Mom had indeed mobilized the troops. I recognized aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends. They stood in clusters, whispering and shooting us dark looks as we walked past. Inside the courtroom, Bobby sat in the front row with Mom and their lawyer. He wore a new suit and had gotten a haircut. He looked like a respectable uncle, not someone on the sex offender registry. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, the picture of a grieving grandmother. Our side of the courtroom was nearly empty. Just us, our lawyer, and surprisingly, Sarah. She gave me a small nod as we took our seats. I'd never felt more alone yet, more determined. Whatever happened today, I wouldn't let them win. The judge entered, and I gripped my husband's hand. Everything we'd fought for came down to this moment. My girl's safety hung in the balance, and I was ready to fight with everything I had. The judge's gavel struck the bench, and proceedings began. Our lawyer presented the security footage first, showing Bobby's repeated surveillance of our home. The timestamps revealed a pattern of escalating behavior. Mom's lawyer countered by arguing that a man had the right to jog on public streets. During the first recess, I noticed Beth in the hallway making phone calls. She kept glancing at me while whispering urgently into her phone. My husband stayed close, his hand on my back as we navigated through clusters of hostile relatives. Back in session, Mom took the stand. She painted herself as a heartbroken grandmother denied access to her grandchildren. She produced photos of happier times, family gatherings where Bobby played with cousins. Her tears seemed genuine as she described how I'd torn the family apart. Our lawyer's cross-examination revealed the truth beneath her performance. When asked directly about Bobby's conviction, Mom claimed the victim's family had blown things out of proportion. She insisted Bobby had simply been showing affection. Several relatives in the gallery nodded along with her delusions. The judge ordered a brief recess to review evidence. In the hallway, Dad cornered my husband near the water fountain. I watched Dad's face redden as he gestured wildly, clearly trying to pressure my husband into making me drop the case. My husband simply walked away, leaving Dad standing there fuming. Sarah testified next, bringing printouts of the group chat messages. Mom's lawyer objected repeatedly, but the judge allowed them as evidence of coordinated harassment. Sarah's hands trembled as she read aloud their plans to ambush us at various locations. The afternoon brought Bobby to the stand. He'd clearly been coached, speaking softly about rehabilitation and redemption. He claimed he only wanted to be part of his niece's lives, to watch them grow up. His performance might have been convincing if you didn't know what he'd done. Our lawyer destroyed his facade with simple questions. Bobby couldn't explain why he'd chosen to jog past our house specifically. He fumbled when asked about the birthday party intrusion. His calm demeanor cracked when confronted with the victim impact statement from his case. During the lunch break, I discovered Mom had arranged for several church members to be present. They filled an entire row, wearing matching crosses and shooting disapproving looks my way. One woman I recognized from Mom's Bible study group actually hissed at me in the bathroom. The CPS investigation results were presented next. Patricia herself testified that she'd found no evidence of abuse or neglect. She noted that the children were thriving and well-adjusted. Mom's lawyer tried to spin this as evidence that the girls needed their extended family, but it fell flat. My testimony came last. I detailed every incident, every violation of boundaries, every attempt to manipulate my children. I showed the letters they'd sent directly to my daughters. I explained how we'd changed our entire lives to avoid Bobby's stalking. Mom's lawyer attacked my credibility, suggesting I was paranoid and controlling. He implied I was using my children as weapons in a family feud. I stayed calm, sticking to facts and documentation. The security footage spoke louder than his accusations. The judge announced he would review all evidence and issue his decision within 3 days. As we left the courtroom, Bobby made his move. He stepped directly into my path, forcing me to stop. His eyes held a coldness that chilled me as he leaned close enough for only me to hear his whispered threat about seeing the girls soon. My husband immediately positioned himself between us, and our lawyer documented the interaction. Bobby stepped back with a smirk, rejoining Mom and their attorney. The threat was subtle enough to maintain plausible deniability, but the message was clear. That evening, we found our mailbox stuffed with letters from various relatives. Each one condemned our actions and demanded reconciliation. Someone had also left a Bible on our doorstep with specific verses about forgiveness highlighted in yellow. The next morning brought new challenges. Jane's teacher called to report that Beth had shown up at school claiming a family emergency. The school had followed our protocols and denied her access, but Beth had caused a scene that upset several students. I drove to the school immediately to speak with the principal. She showed me security footage of Beth arguing with the front desk staff, demanding to take the girls for a family emergency. When refused, Beth had started crying loudly about being kept from her nieces. The principal assured me they would maintain vigilance, but suggested we might consider a different school. The situation was creating disruption, and other parents had expressed concerns. I left feeling defeated, knowing Mom's campaign was working exactly as intended. At home, I found my husband installing additional cameras around our property. He'd taken the rest of the week off work after Dad had shown up there again, this time with Uncle Helen's husband. They'd tried to corner him in the parking lot during lunch. Sarah called that afternoon with disturbing news. The family group chat had evolved into planning sessions for after the judge's decision. They discussed filing multiple legal actions to drain our resources. Some suggested showing up at the girls' activities to establish accidental contact. I spent hours documenting these new threats for our lawyer. Each piece of evidence felt like another weight on my shoulders. The girls sensed the tension, becoming clingy and anxious. Lily had started having nightmares, though she couldn't articulate what scared her. 2 days after the hearing, Bobby escalated further. He showed up at the grocery store where I was shopping with the girls. He didn't approach directly, but positioned himself where the girls would see him. He waved enthusiastically, calling out their names. I abandoned our cart and rushed the girls out of the store. Jane asked why we were leaving without our groceries. Lily wanted to know why we couldn't talk to Uncle Bobby. Their innocent questions broke my heart as I struggled to explain without frightening them. That night, we discovered someone had been in our backyard. Nothing was taken or damaged, but our daughter's outdoor toys had been rearranged. Their playhouse door was open, and someone had left 3 wrapped presents inside. The security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned during that exact time frame. My husband called the police while I checked every lock and window. The officers took a report but explained that without proof of forced entry or footage, there was little they could do. The presents contained dolls, each one dressed in bathing suits like the one from Jane's party. The psychological warfare was taking its toll. I jumped at every sound, checked locks obsessively, and barely slept. My husband started working from home to maintain constant vigilance. We were prisoners in our own lives. Exactly what Mom and Bobby wanted. The morning of the judge's decision arrived with a thunderstorm. We dressed carefully again, preparing for either outcome. I'd arranged for a trusted friend from my mother's group to watch the girls, someone completely disconnected from my family. The courthouse was even more packed than before. Mom had mobilized additional supporters, including several prominent church members. They wore color-coordinated outfits and carried signs about family unity. Local news had somehow been alerted to the family dispute. Inside the courtroom, tension crackled like electricity. Bobby sat between Mom and their lawyer, wearing another new suit. The families coordinating their outfits like they're attending a wedding instead of trying to force kids near a predator. Someone clearly missed the memo on what